stay-at-home mom, to be or not to be? That is the question. Today's guest talks to us about her motherhood journey in becoming a stay-at-home mom. This is episode 7. If you're looking for inspiration, for a place where women are building each other through meaningful conversations, in a definite judgment-free zone, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Confident Motherhood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Confident Motherhood. I am so stoked today to have my dear friend Kinsey on here. So she's going to be sharing with you guys a little bit about herself. So before we actually get started into the conversation, I want her to share a little bit about herself and where they can find her, or where we can find her. So Kinsey.
Hi guys, I'm Kinsey. My name is Kinsey Dulaney. I'm a mom of 2, a 2.5-year-old Clarence and a 6-month-old Kate, and live in Dallas, Texas with my husband. You can find me on Instagram at Kinsey Dulaney, and I just adore Elsie. She is just of the biggest encouragers and supporters I've ever met. Oh. You'd never guess that we'd never met in person, because she is just a gem, and we text and talk more than most of the people I see here in Dallas. So she is awesome.
Oh, thanks. I would say it's like likewise, but probably stronger. So I wanted to bring Kinsey on the podcast today. We've kind of just chatted here and there about coming on the podcast, and I was finding okay, what is one thing that, aside from Kinsey being so awesome and influencing and just being such a huge supporter in the small shop community and just women overall, what is one thing that she's had to overcome that we all as women at some point have to overcome as well? And not long ago, Kinsey gave birth to her second daughter. And of course, she had a really crazy pregnancy, and I want her to talk about that, because it wasn't very easy, but she overcame it. And I remember us chatting and her having this huge fear and going through similar things and just getting by. So I want her to share her experience on that second pregnancy and how kind of this whole stay-at-home mom, which is what we'll talk about, came about. And it came from her second pregnancy. So Kinsey, tell us a little bit about your second pregnancy and how all that kind of played into the pattern of staying at home with the kiddos.
Yeah. Well, first off, Kate is our little blessing and came earlier than we expected, which we're so thankful for. She was definitely a shock. And then I had a relatively seamless pregnancy with my first daughter. So whenever we started having complications, basically I had several hemorrhages that weren't stopping, and they turned into placenta previa, and had a very large clot that was the cause of the placenta previa. But that was a huge difference of experience than what I had with my first pregnancy. And the issue is I couldn't work. I was a full-time speech therapist, and I loved my job. And I felt like we'd gotten in the swing of things, of our routine with one kid. And then here comes Kate, and here comes all these complications and these pregnancies. And I can do that I'm allowed to do every day is shower, use the bathroom, and be on my feet for 20 minutes to help decrease chances of more blood clots. So, and if you hear that grunting, that is my little Kate in the back, because she is wide awake. But, so it was very difficult just going from being a super active mom to all of a sudden not being able to do really anything. At the time, not many people know this, but what was a big struggle was that since I couldn't work, I was also denied short-term disability because insurance looked at my pregnancy as a pre-existing condition. My husband had also lost his job the same month we found out we were pregnant.
Wow.
The same month that I started having complications. So we went from feeling very certain about the path of our lives to having it kind of turned upside down. Looking back, it was a huge blessing. At the time, it felt very defeating. It felt like we had no idea what we were going to do. We were living on prayer. Definitely, like that saying came the truth. But, you know, now I look back and it prepared me to mentally be able to figure out how to be a stay-at-home mom. Because as most people would understand, I think the biggest issue, whether you're working or being a stay-at-home mom, is budget. Which one is going to be more financially smart for your family? And for us, because of the past year of just having to really figure out finances of living off of savings, it really showed us that, okay, like with two, we feel like me being at home would be best for the kids right now. And we can figure this out, you know. If we've got to be which we're not, but if we have to be oatmeal at every meal, we can, you know, like, because it becomes about your kids. And it is not always an easy road, but I think once you're thrown those challenges, if, you know, you keep pushing forward and you don't give in to the unknown or the negative energy, I mean, you do come out stronger. And that was something that my husband and I were really proud of. And it helped us decide, hey, you know, instead of you going back to work right now, it would be best for our family for you to be at home. Because we learned through us basically staying at home and living off our savings and not being able to get out, that our family became so tight-knit and closer. And we enjoyed doing things at home together. Now, we still love getting out all the time, but it completely changed our perspective. I never saw myself as a stay-at-home mom. I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I thought I would lose my own identity, and I thought I would lose everything that made me Kinsey. But it's actually done the opposite. It has allowed me to really figure out what makes me happy, and it really get to know my girls in a way that I kind of felt like I didn't quite have the opportunity to with Claren during her first year because I worked. And so I think being a stay-at-home mom has been such a blessing for me. I know it can be a struggle for so many moms, and every day is different, whether it is a good day or a challenging day. But from being able to look at and experiencing both, for us, being a stay-at-home mom has just been the biggest blessing.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I know we went through like similar things when it comes to like the hemorrhages, and like I remember like talking to you and being like, it was so scary, and I was like, you know what, like, I understand where you are because I had been through that. But I think I was like 30 weeks on bed rest that I had. And you were kind of similar because I remember like you got pregnant, and then from there was like waiting. And I was like, she's going to come. Like, she's going to come. And I remember talking about that. But
I was 25 weeks.
It's amazing. But amazing what our bodies can do. And I guess like I having that support system too, because I think I wouldn't have been able to do mine if it weren't for like my mom, like who helped me a ton with Ezra, because Ezra was like 18 months when I got pregnant with Shiloh, like unexpectedly. And I had that whole placenta previa, and oh my gosh, it was just so scary. And like every day, I remember like I was really strong in the beginning. Like I had a really hard time, and I cried so much at my job, like with the girls at the office. And I remember them like all praying for me at church. But I kind of had like that strong feeling when I went into bed rest. But then like somewhere on that like 15-week mark of being on bed rest, I really got like desperate, where I kind of started questioning God. Like, you know, I would see all my friends going out with their kids, and here I was like home alone, or my mom had my other one, and I felt like so helpless, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember like from like 15-week mark being home to like maybe like 25, like between that and just being 24 weeks maybe, where I saw a little bit of more hope. I felt like my mindset, just like you said, like I just had to shift my mind into thinking positive, because I had been so negative from like that 15-week mark, that I was like,
Yeah.
I need to get positive. It's like the only way I'm going to get through this. And finally, at 30 weeks, when they were like, okay, you're good to go, you can go walk for the last, 9 weeks, I was like, what? So I think like the mindset and like having that positive attitude definitely has like such an impact on like our feelings, our like emotions, like what we're going through, and just seeing the positive in it really does pull us through. So that's amazing. I mean, look at her, she's here. And
Oh yeah. And definitely too, like to add on to that, I mean, I definitely went through that same feeling. I remember telling my husband that, you know, I felt like there was almost two sides to me. A person who wanted to be a mom to my first child, who needed me, and my toddler has no idea why mom can't hold her and can't pick her up and do all these things. And I told my husband, I said, I feel like I've just become an incubator. And that sounds so terrible to say, but you know, it was like, that's basically all you could do, you know? Yeah. And I know that it's going to be better in the end, because you have a beautiful child coming in. But when you are unable to do so much, it does affect you. Yeah. And so the ways that I had to, which it sounds so silly to me, but I just remember being like, okay, what are things that I'm not good at? One is doing eyeshadow. And I just started watching YouTube videos like, well, if I'm going to sit here, I'm going to see if I can get good at eyeshadow, or if I can get good at braiding my hair, or I need to learn how to French braid. So we're going to learn how to. And so this definitely shifting to be like, how can I use this time to still be able to benefit the future, even though right now it feels very just never ending and long, depressing. So,
oh my gosh. Okay. So from there we go to like, my next question to you is, at what point did you decide, okay, I'm just gonna finally become a stay-at-home mom? Because I know you said you really never pictured yourself being a stay-at-home mom, but aside from like being on bed rest and being the easy way to things, like what made you take the decision to say, okay, fine, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom? And how did that go about?
Yeah. Well, so during my maternity leave, I think my husband really saw a switch in, because if you follow me on Instagram, you know that anxiety is something that I have had a lot of battles with. And he basically saw my anxiety almost become non-existent. Now, yes, you know, I definitely take measures to stay on top of it. But when we talked about me going back to work, there were only two options. It was either me stay home or me go part-time, because I had such bad anxiety working full-time, coming home, doing all the housework, you know, which I know so many women do that, and that is amazing. For me, though, I almost felt like I was never catching up, and I was up till 3 a.m. every night. I felt like I was always never meeting the standard. I felt like I was focusing more on my anxiety and the things that I wasn't doing instead of my child. And so my husband and I just sat down and we were like, now that we have 2 kids, we've got to figure out how you can be the best mom possible, but also the healthiest mom possible for your girls.
Yeah.
And part of that was just either working part-time or being a stay-at-home. And then when we looked at daycare prices, it really just worked out better to stay at home full-time. And so I was very thankful that my husband saw that, because he also, before I had my first child, we both were under the complete agreement that, oh no, I will never stay at home. I have my master's degree. I need to use it. Like, I cannot be paying these student loans just to not work. All these different things, like I'm not meant to be a mom. I'm meant to be a speech therapist. Like, all these different just plans that, they change. And, I actually had so much anxiety talking to him about it, not for any reason. I think just because I knew that my plans had changed, and I was so thankful when he was like, no, I see the change, and I see that you are so mentally more present, and more just aware and really enjoying the moment when you're able to spend more time with your girls. Now, this isn't for everyone, but for us, this is what worked. And just being able to stay home with my girls has really helped my anxiety. No, my house is not spotless. It actually looks like a tornado ran through it right now. But I still feel accomplished every day. Whereas even though I was going to work and I was coming home and I was making dinner and I was doing, the child care, my husband was helping, but still I was doing the laundry, all the different things, I never felt accomplished. And something about being a stay-at-home mom, I just feel very mentally strong, and I feel like I see so much good from it. My girls seem so blessed by it, and for me, it really has. It's made a huge change on just my anxiety and my day-to-day attitude towards facing the day.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. And again, I go back because it's like when we're working, like I remember going back to work, I think I was like 2 months after Shiloh was like 2 months.
Yeah.
Where I felt like, because I think you also get into that mentality of like, I can do this, like once you have a baby, you're like in that, there's like a point where you're like that exhausted point when you're like, oh my gosh, I have to breastfeed again, or I have to like that whole run. But then you come into like this adrenaline where you're just like, okay, I got this. Like I got it down packed. And I was like at 2 months, I was going back to work. And then I think I only worked for like a month after that. And I just, the same thing I told my husband, my milk supply wasn't coming in. And I just felt so bad that I was like, I'm doing this because, of course, I need to work. I needed to work in the house. But I was also like, I put it like on a balance. And I was like, okay, is it worth me working and having to pay for childcare and coming home with nothing because of that? Or do I just make the balance of budgeting and just being able to stay home? And it was like night and day, like you say, like for us. And we had to tighten up a little bit. And budget wise, it was really hard for like a whole year to just kind of get it in the, nip it and do good. But my attitude changed. Everything changed. Like our kids, it was just more present. And even though, like you say, the house is messy and things weren't always super tidy and all that, there was just like a feeling of like that presence when you're there and you're in the moment. And I just felt so blessed by that. So I completely commend you for that too, because I think it can be hard. You get into that point where you're like, you also battle with the, oh my gosh, but I'm home. And you're just like, I don't know. There's like this battle in your mind because you're just like, okay, do you go back to work or do you stay home? But then you're like, I'm home. And then, you feel like, how do you support? How do you bring in as well? Like, how do you, I don't know, like, I can't really explain it. But for me, with my husband, I'm always like, how can I support and how can I bring into the house and how can I help? Like, I always have that in my mind. So, yeah, I think it's beautiful to see, like, for you, like, your anxiety, almost be non-existent because of that. And like you say, it's like a complete change. And yes, it's an adjustment, but it's so good. And so lastly, like now that you're home, and of course, like you say, house is not super neat all the time and whatever. So how has that been, that like whole process now that you are at home? Like, what are you doing to be mom, but to also be Kinsey? Because you said earlier, like, you struggle with, like, what if you had to be home? Like, would you lose yourself in that, But you came through that. So how has it been now that you're a stay-at-home mom? Like, how has that been for you? And, like, I guess, like, what recommendations you have for moms along with that? So talk a little bit about that.
So definitely, I think luckily I have friends who were amazing resources, but I knew that I needed to get plugged in to either a mom's group but I was also very almost picky about my mom's group, because I told all my friends, I'm like, I'm a mom that I just say what I feel, Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth. I never mean anything negatively. But yeah, sometimes I just do things or say things and people are like, oh man, she is off her rocker today. And I was like, so I need a mom group that's going to understand, if I can't quite tell you when my kid's birthday is on that day or something, like, and so I actually had a friend reach out, and there's a group, a mom group called Fit for Moms that I just got plugged into. And yeah, the first day it was nerve-wracking because starting something new, no matter how old you get, it's nerve-wracking to start it. Mm-hmm. But I was so blessed by it, because I would just encourage any mom to look for those resources, to where there's, great communities of women that could care less if your kid shows up in pajamas or the same clothes as before or a fresh new outfit, just find that community. Because what I love about the group that I found is that not only do we encourage each other to be healthy, we do 2 play dates a week. We do mom's night out and mom's day out twice a month. So it's just like getting yourself out of the house. Mm-hmm. Because I know in the weeks before I found this, where we were just staying at home because I didn't know all of the resources you had, I was like, okay, this is how women go crazy. Like, this is how women lose themselves, because the only people they're talking to is their 2.5-year-old and 6-month-old.
Yeah. And you're just like, ah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, okay, I'm starting to look like I do have a few screws loose. So, but I think just finding a community really, really, really is important. And I know, like, the community that I found, it is called Fit for Moms. It's nationwide. So, it's just a great way to meet women, because that's what I needed. I needed support. I needed women who were like-minded, and who really just enjoyed me for me and my kids for my kids. And luckily I found that, and it has been the biggest help of just keeping me sane. We've got things to look forward to every week, and we genuinely get out of the house every single day to do something, because we're better for it at the end of the day. The dishes can wait. Yeah. The laundry can be folded later. But that time that you can just get out of the house, even when you don't feel like it, you're always going to, most of the time, look back and be like, I'm glad I did it, Yeah. So I would definitely encourage women, just get out of the house. Even if your kids look cute and you look like you just walked out of bed, get out of the house, because you'll be better for it.
Yeah.
So
for sure. And it's so funny, because even with me, like, being such a social, I feel like a social butterfly, like, online, but I'm also, like, so shy when I actually do see people face to face. Like, that's, like, nerve-wracking for me. But I'm like, I love meeting moms online and all that stuff. And I remember chatting with you and feeling like, okay, I need to get myself plugged into something in the community.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that the past like month or so, like finally getting myself into the community. And it's made such a difference, like a complete difference, because not too long ago, I met up with a girlfriend of mine. We actually went to middle school together, and we met up at the expo that I went to here in Orlando. And she's like, we went to school together. And I was like, yes, but I cannot remember your name. Finally, like, we decided to have like coffee, and we kept putting it off because she's got 4 kiddos. I have 3. And so we're like, we need to just make it happen. And she was like in her PJs, coloring her hair. I went over, we had breakfast. I helped her with the kids. It was like so nice, because you're just like, I understand you. You understand me. Like, this is good. Like, the kids can be screaming and we can be chatting, and it's okay. And so she came up to the table and she's like, I have to show you these pictures. And I was like, oh my God. She got pictures from like our 8th grade dance, where we are together, and like I was like,
can we resurface those?
I need to show them. I should definitely put them in the notes for the podcast. But I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I cannot believe she had those pictures. And it was like 8th grade, and just connecting. And it was just like so nice, because it wasn't fancy. It wasn't crazy. It was just us being moms, speaking our hearts, and just helping each other through that. And it was so nice. So for sure, yes, I would say finding that community. Don't think about having to look perfect. Just get plugged in somewhere for sure. So yeah,
exactly. And to add on to that too, for some women, it's going to take a couple tries, Don't get bogged down if the first group you tried, because I've been that mom that even though it wasn't face-to-face, I've been in Facebook groups, and I was like, I can tell right off the bat.
Yeah.
I ain't going to fit in right here. I'm not going to fit in this. So definitely, like that group is out there, and you will find that community. And, I think you or I could be great resources to help too, but it makes such a difference, and it is so worth it. It is so nice to be able to, like, today, go to the pool with some other moms and their kids. And my kid is having a full-on meltdown. But I've got 3 other moms that are just giggling with me, because we're like, Claren is straight up crying because the purple dress on her baby, is purple, and she wants it to be blue, but we've never had a blue dress for, just the most ridiculous thing. She's 2.5. And so it's hard not to giggle, but you're just like, thank you for not looking at my child like
oh my gosh.
And so that community is out there, and that's made such a change for me. And I can honestly say, as cliche as it is, like, looking back in the past year, I am so thankful for just the struggles we did go through, because until I was 35 weeks pregnant, bless you, Kate, that was Kate. But until I was 35 weeks pregnant, my husband was out of a job the whole time. And so it's a perfect example of, it does get better. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will figure it out. Even on those days that you feel so low, like, okay, I just need to lock myself in the closet, you will get through it, and you're going to make it through, and you're not alone. But you got to reach out to us moms who are also some days not sure if we're going to make it through it. So. Yeah,
for sure. And it's so reassuring, because I love, like, that we get to chat, because there's so many days where I'm so down, and you're like, you got it, like, keep going. And then there's days when you're like, oh my gosh, I've had it. And then that's where I'm like, okay, you got it, keep going. And it's like, that's what we need, because for so long I was like thinking, oh my gosh, I have to be like the perfect mom to fit in. But it's like, absolutely not. Like, whenever you're down, I'm up, and we can help each other. And that's the balance that we like all give to each other. And that's amazing, like having that community. So yes, for sure, getting plugged in and finding that little tribe and, making it work. So that's amazing.
And for all y'all out there, if you need a mom to help talk you down when you feel like you're about to just tackle someone, just call Elsie, because she will talk you down to where you're like, okay, you're right. I need to act like a grown adult.
We all have those moments.
I don't need to overreact because Elsie is the best at talking me down.
Oh my gosh.
Bringing me back to earth.
Thank you. But that's what we're here for. That's both of us. And girl, you're such an encourager, and I love you for that. I love how you're influencing like the mom community with like your pure heart, and you're just like, what you see is what you get. And I love that about you.
It's not always pretty.
I love it. I just love it because it's exactly, you're just like, you identify so well, because you have those days when you're like, you're looking all cute and you're like, oh my gosh, she's making motherhood look so good. And then you have those days where you're like, not too long ago, I think you were doing like a story, and you're like, when you realized you've been doing stories with like poop on you, and like, you're like pointing to the thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've had those moments.
Yes. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I had just had this cute workout shirt on, and I look down at my stories, and there's a nice brown stain all on the front of it.
Oh my God.
That Kate had so kindly left me. So, oh yeah, mom life is real.
Yeah. So that's what I love about you. And so I thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for chatting with all the moms that listen in. And I hope,
this is fun.
Yeah, I hope that they can really just be encouraged by the mom life, the fun, the good, the struggles that so many go through, and just having that sympathy for other moms and the heart to listen to them and, to open up, because it's not easy. Not easy, especially like, when you're comparing yourself to the squares that you see on Instagram. And I love the fact that so many women now have been standing up to like postpartum and like all these things with the body image. It's just been really amazing to watch. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for speaking to all these women that are listening. And before you leave, tell us where they can find you on your social media handles. If you have a site up already, I'm not sure, but share all that with them, where they can find you, and go.
Yeah. So right now, best place to find me is on Instagram. It's at Kinsey Dulaney, KINSEY DULANEY. I have been working on a blog to start it up for about a month and a half now, but goodness gracious, mom life just gets in front of it. And so it's hopefully to be released this month. So
hopefully we'll get there.
We will see. Yeah. So, but if you want me, Instagram is the best place to find me, and you will see the good, the bad, the ugly, and sometimes the pretty days, but those are few and far between. So
she's got the best stories.
I definitely put it all out there as real as it can get. So there is no facade here at all.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Elsie. Love you, girl.
Love you too.
Thank you for being here with us today. We hope that you're inspired, encouraged, and empowered to live confidently through your motherhood journey. You can find me on Instagram at Confident Motherhood or our website, confidentmotherhood.com. For any topic suggestions, questions, or stories you'd like us to share with our audience, please write us to hello@confidentmotherhood.com. Talk to you soon.